Okay, welcome everyone to the Troy City Council Chamber. I am going to open up our first order of business, and that would be a confirmation hearing for Acting Commissioner Dylan Turek, Acting Commissioner of Planning and Economic Development. So welcome, Dylan. We'll take a quick roll call. Councilmember Gully will be absent tonight. Councilmember Figueroa potentially later. Councilmember Steele. Present. Councilmember Min. Present. Councilmember Conley Wilson. Present. Councilmember Soriento. Here. Council President Mantello, I am here. And our two males are missing, so it is tonight only council with 5, and we do have 2/3 just for the record. So 5 would constitute 2/3 and a quorum, obviously. In front of you, folks do have Dylan Turek's resume and the job description. Thank you, Councilmember Soriento. And I must say, before we begin, I love your strategy here, Dylan. I mean, who could say a bad word in front of Dylan's family? I mean, look at these kids, look at these kids.
My mom and my dad are also watching. So
Oh,
I that on there, yeah.
hi, mom and dad. So, they're probably what, 2 of our 4 watchers right now?
It's probably all 4 actually. Yeah.
1,000. It's still in family. There we go. 2 out of 5. So welcome everyone. And I would first like to introduce Dylan to everyone and hand you off to Dylan. Tell us a little bit about yourself and, you know, kind of how you kind of risen up the ranks here in the city and where potentially you see the office going. And thank you for joining us today.
Oh, thank you. If I take a little bit of time to sort of get the things, I got 2 hours of sleep last night, so I apologize ahead of time. And I'll also have to be thinking about the questions before I answer them. So
Before you go, I saw your post.
oh yeah,
So-
it was a bad move. I regret that immensely. But anyway,
It's okay.
so my name is Dylan. I am originally from downstate. I have a background that's sort of varied. It's actually mostly in real estate. It runs the gamut from sales. I used to do sales of Warburg in the city. I came out to go to grad school at University of Albany for planning. And while I was in the last class that I basically wrote the thesis paper that became the planning studio. I never finished it though. So, but while that was happening, Seth Rosenblum was one of the people that was on our advisory committee. And in the midst of that class, the studio, like the last class you have to take, he offered me a job. And so I was like, okay, like I hope Seth's watching, because I'll never forget his email to me was, my wife says I work too much and you seem fairly confident. Do you want to go? Okay, I'll go work with this guy. It was great. And I love Seth. I mean, it ended up being a really great experience. I got to work at 17 Chapel mainly. I did a lot of leasing. And I think it really helped me learn a lot about what makes office space more than anything really, because the stuff that had to do with like urban planning, I already did that. Like I had a pretty good understanding of how urban planning worked, and I think that really tied itself well to 17 Chapel. But the part that I didn't understand was, you know, what do businesses want in a city? What do businesses want somewhere? What are they looking for? It turns out the answer is parking, believe it or not. But that seemed to be a lot of what was happening at the time. And there came a point where we finished up 17 Chapel, and you know, he and I were talking about it, and I had always wanted to start my own business. So I left and I went back to bartending while I started a company, and with my ex-business partner, Neil Malone, who's a really great guy and a good architect. And we started just renovating houses. And from there, it picked up quickly. Got introduced to an investor by Dick Christopher, actually. Randomly, it wasn't even like, here's somebody who should be investing in. It was more like, this is Danny. In any case, he ended up helping us purchase a bunch of properties. And before you knew it, we had like 20-something units, 30,000 square feet of commercial space and a couple other things. Things were going really well. And then, well, I got sick. I got Lyme disease and I didn't have health insurance. So that's really what brought me. It's actually really what brought me here. It's like, I can't afford to do this stuff without health insurance. So, and I had Max at that point. So it was, I think going through that experience, Okay, I'm back. Thank you, Mike. He's great.
I love both of them, but.
Isn't he? I don't know. He's got his mother's charm. So yeah, so it was the health insurance actually brought me out of that, but at the same time, I mean, to be honest, it was so stressful. I mean, and you can talk to Dot about it, you can talk to anybody, but I think what it really led me trying to have my own business, because by the way, it wasn't just one business, it was the first business, and then that turned into a second business, which is construction, and then that turned into a third business, which is property management, which turned into a fourth business, what we call the flea market, out of nowhere, because I was like ambitious, and I just felt like we could do anything. And at some point it became too much. And that was another lesson that I learned there. So I learned a lot of lessons the hard way, but at the same time, I think it's brought me to this point now where I really know what I'm doing. And I would also add that going home at night, not knowing how you're going to pay all the people that work for you, because it weighs on you so much, but it also builds like a real empathy, because I don't think small business owners talk about this enough. And you know, I've had this conversation with Heidi not long before. The amount of businesses that are struggling every day, you know, you don't see it because they do make it work in the end, but every day the amount of stress that they're under to just make payroll, just to make things happen. If you would talk to them in the street or say something, they're just gonna be like, oh, everything's fine, it's great, my business is working out. When in reality, it's a totally different story. And so I think that going through that, I think I wrote something on Facebook and I got so many people reaching out to me. It was like crazy, like so many people with their businesses saying, oh my God, I totally know what you're going through. I've been through it myself. And then when COVID happened, it really kind of also opened up those avenues. I was getting calls constantly. Like we set up a hotline. We were getting calls from people in other cities. Like we were getting calls from people in Rensselaer County. Actually, people in Albany County were calling us and saying, what can I do? And they just want to be heard. I mean, sometimes people just want to be heard, and that's it. We didn't have that much that we could do for them, but they wanted to tell their story. So that, you know, through economic development and working with Steve was perfect for me because he didn't do the things that I do, and I didn't do the things that he does. So I had the opportunity to kind of just be autonomous to some degree and work on some really big projects with them. Among them, you know, One Lyman Square, I felt like I could bring a fresh take on Lyman Square with some of the things that I know how to do. I also felt the same way about Taylor Apartments and about a couple others as well. And I think for the most part, they've worked out really well. I couldn't anticipate COVID and then prices jumping up 200%. But at the same time, you know, we've been able to get a lot of things done even despite those issues. So which brings me to today. I guess more or less it brings me here now.
Appreciate it, Dylan, and you know, your insight on small businesses is right on the money. They don't talk about their hardships at all. And I do know a couple really close friends who are small business owners, and I mean, they're stressing terribly. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate that insight. Quick question, then I'll let folks chime in. I know a couple of questions. With the economic development position, has anyone moved into that role? And or are we interviewing anyone for that role? Because it is a big loss and you won't be able to do both, and we do need someone in that position.
So I expressed some trepidation about taking on this position simply because it's not protected by the union, to be quite frank. And my concern was that, you know, I don't try to get involved in the political stuff. I try to stay out of all of that. But my concern was that if I had taken this position and you know, this new mayor like that comes in and says, you know, I've got somebody that I want to work with or whatever it is, I would basically be out. And then I can't work in the city anymore for like a year. And it becomes all this thing with my family, like where am I gonna go? You know, I've got to go somewhere else. Because it's not like these positions are everywhere. There's, you know, one in every city basically. And so I agreed to do it on the basis that my job remains open so that I can slide back into it if I have to. At the same time though, right now I'm doing 2 jobs, which is not fun. I mean, I love it. It doesn't change that much. I did a lot of the stuff with Steve before that I'm doing today, but the stuff that Steve did really, really well was a lot. So we basically just lost Steve. I mean, that's really what it came down to. I know, I'm trying to get him back. I was already making pitches. I know, I was back home. No, so it's, you know, but I was very fortunate to have Steve, or quite frankly, to work under, because he taught me a lot of stuff. No one can prepare you. Like, I'm gonna have to make mistakes. Like, that's the only way that I can learn, quite frankly. But hopefully, I need my daughter back. Hopefully, I can I can skip some of those steps because I've been here before. And I think coming in new into a new city would be tough. But the fact that I'm coming here having known all these projects already, so I was already working on them, it does allow me to then sort of trim some of the fat out of the what we're trying to get done this year and try to finish strong for the year. Then I'll worry about next year.
I appreciate that, and if you don't mind, I want to take a couple minutes because you actually opened the door, to
Sure.
what I'm looking for. Just in terms of the office, I know Steve was completely overwhelmed. You're coming in, you're catching up on some projects, and I am seeing you getting super knee deep in a couple of projects, Kinlock, for instance, and I love seeing it. You should know I've worked with planners all throughout my state and local government years. And so saying that, I guess what concerns me, the office, how many folks are there right now? Are there other planners? And I believe there are. So I think I know a couple of the answers, but I'm going to allow you. So I kind of see all these projects, Dylan, I mean, major, you know, you're talking one monument to the atrium and other projects to some smaller projects and not small in folks' worlds, Kinlock and others. How are we going to balance that? What is on the horizon, short term, long term? Because obviously you're not going to be able to do it all.
No, yeah. So short term is more about all hands on deck. And my job for this next couple of months is to try to land some of these projects to get them basically done as much as I can, or get them to the point where the next administration can come in and really kind of pick things up that it's going to be. There's a lot of other things that we're working on that are just going to have to get left behind for now.
For instance, maybe.
So there are a couple of things like the wayfinding. I'd love to deal with the wayfinding right now. I just can't deal with it right now. We don't have the money, first of all. Second of all, to go find the money is going to be complicated. And quite frankly, it's going to be a bit of an uphill battle with, different neighborhoods wanting different things. And it's a very involved project that we got to a certain point, and I feel good about that. It's going to be picked up again at some point, but it's just not on the priority list. One of the things that Steve and I first did early on when we started working together was we created a dashboard. And with that dashboard, we basically said, okay, there's 3 categories. Each one is a scale of 1 to 10, and it's timeliness, its ability to get it done, like we have great resources, and then it's the cost. And through that, we basically created a priorities schedule that we still maintain today. So they constantly shift, but we can kind of focus our energy then on, there are some quick hits that we like low hanging fruit we can get done quickly. Great, we can deal with it. But there's some lower hanging fruit that aren't urgent and they're not, priorities that they gotta go. Like for now, unfortunately, I'd love to be able to do everything, but we can't. The long term, though, I'm excited about because I think I have a little bit of a different take. I'm not a pure planner in the sense of I don't come from a planning office. And I think the mistake that is sort of ingrained in the way that municipalities do planning is that they constantly look for the repeated sort of skill set over and over again, where you've got a bunch of planners who know how to plan, but then you don't really have project managers necessarily. So what I would really rather do is be able to, when I had my own business, the way I used to describe it, that I was trying to do, it takes money to do it, was to basically be the fisherman. Like I want to go out and do the fishing, I bring the fish on the boat, and I need people to process it once it's on the boat. And we can keep going. I can hand it off to this person knows what to do with it. There's a process for that. I get another fish on the boat, and we can do that again, and we do it over and over and over again. Right now I have Andrew, which is fantastic. Crushing. He is one of the best project managers I've ever seen in my entire life. He is incredibly good. He's very detail oriented. He's not necessarily the person that wants to get involved in the business development side of things. He just wants to be told what are the projects I'm working on, and then he can go and do them. And what I'd love to do is give him the opportunity to train a couple of our project managers basically under him, because I want them to work the same way he does. He's so good at it. Danae has stepped up in such a huge way.
I see.
And she's just remarkable. There's a lot of talent in that office. There really is, but she is really, really remarkable. I think that if she wants the job of economic development person, whatever that is, I think she'd be a great candidate for it, and I hope she would go for it. But it's up to her, to make that up.
In Eric's role?
Eric is one of the hardest working people you'll ever meet. He's also prone to probably working at a level that's going to burn himself out at some point. And that's not a knock on him. I totally get it. He wants to do the best. Like that just goes to show his determination to do it well. I think with Eric, it's really more a question of finding out what he wants to do. And I think this is part of it is people do the best work and it comes easiest for them when they're working with something that aligns with their values. And that's really what I try to do. That's what I try to do when I have a company. That's always what I'm trying to do. Like, what is it that you're good at? What is it that makes you happy? And then how can we basically shift things around? I would give everybody 10% of their time to find pet projects that they want to work on. Because then they have their own autonomy to kind of bring it home. And if it's a good idea, let's find, why wouldn't we do it? I love giving people that kind of ability to shape their own careers. With Eric, I think that he's frustrated because somebody has to do the planning board. It's a huge operation. It takes up all of his time. And at the same time, he's also very talented. But he needs, at some point, probably not this year, but if I were still around next year doing this role, I would love to be able to say to Eric, what is your career goal from here? Like, what is it you want to be doing? And then how can I help you basically get there? How can I support you? Because I don't think he wants to be planning board director or planning board secretary.
I do love, the idea, of allowing folks to give me some ideas out of the box.
Yeah.
They're honestly some of the greatest ideas that tend to, become, long-term, projects. For the record, I want to note that Councilmember Figueroa is with us. Thank you for joining us, Councilmember. And, I'll open up to other council members. We'll circle back. Before we do, real quick, do you think you could share with the council the 3 buckets, or at least what you see short-term, long-term projects? And it's not going to happen overnight. I get that, but so we know what's in the hopper.
Yeah, I mean, do you want me to go through them now, or do you want me to give you guys a list?
So I think a list.
Oh, okay,
So
yeah.
We could have a planning committee meeting and
Yeah,
take it from there.
sure.
I don't want to get, I could spend 2 hours with you right now.
No, I mean, frankly, I'm like, can I remember all those things? And I don't know if I can. but I
No,
appreciate
a follow-up would be
it.
great.
Sure, you got it.
So we'll go in order. I'll open up to, Councilmember Figueroa just got here. Councilmember Steele, did you have any questions or comments?
I just want to say how grateful I am that you're willing to step up. We had our first IDA meeting together and that went very well. So I'm looking forward to great stuff. I don't have any questions at this time.
Awesome. Thank you, Councilmember Steele. Councilmember Min.
First of all, as someone who does run a business and who everyone knows is struggling right now, coming out of COVID, that empathy is really important. And those conversations that small business owners have in private, because you're not allowed to show that things aren't going well or you feel that way, really does keep going. And I really appreciate you acknowledging that, because we all go through difficult times and it's how to handle and learn from that. And it's also like learning how big do you want to get, where's your focus, where's the passion. And I have a lot of respect and I understand that very well. A couple sort of management questions, and then sort of like what I want to know what your vision is for filling positions and who you think is missing from the department. I'm giving it that warm up 60 times.
Sure.
Process questions. So planning being a legal process with potential in Article 78, if that process is not followed, opening up the city to money, losing money. How are you going to manage while we remain short staffed, making sure that every step is complete, clear, and done to the standards that are laid out in our new zone? The buck is going to stop with you. How are you going to make sure that happens?
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate that question. That's a good question. It's actually a very difficult question to answer because we're still kind of wrapping our arms around process right now. There's only been a couple of meetings to change the zoning code. And we're already bumping against sort of precedents causing issues at the moment. Like, do people come back if we have to have a third-party review, if we don't have an engineer? Do we wait for the application to be full and those comments to come back before we start doing like a, or sending us to Norfolk County before, giving approvals? There's a lot of those kind of conversations that are sort of being worked out right now. And as we're I don't want to say we're making up the airplane as we're flying. We really have a good airplane. That's a very good code. The question is, in lieu of things like an engineer on board, it throws a bit of a wrinkle into it. And so my job right now is just to provide consistent evidence. It's like our consistent process in messaging. And this is what I said to Eric before. I don't care if people disagree with us 9 out of 10 times, you just have to make sure that that's consistent. Like people have to know going into something, what is planning board going to say about this? And they can look back then at other sort of projects and say, okay, well, clearly this isn't something that they look favorably on. But it also has to be part of the law. Like they can't just come up with something that, I don't like the color of that house, or I don't like this, or whatever it is. It has to be rooted in some sort of substantial legal code issue. So I think everyone's kind of still getting comfortable with code. And it's probably gonna be, I would give it at least another 6 months before we really have it down to a path. But that said, we're talking to all the attorneys very upfront, very quickly. And making sure that they have all their questions answered quickly as well, and that they know exactly what to expect.
And then, to that end, you talked a lot about how, having those open lines of communication was one of them with businesses, with people that are developing, with neighborhoods. We've definitely seen that in a variety of projects where one developer or one project has better communication with the community.
Yeah.
We get a better outcome. It's a less time consuming, less fraud. And a generally better outcome. So what steps do you want to put in place to make sure that, agendas are getting out like on time and with detail, and making sure that, that like the videos, because I know that like the YouTube stream of CRC, LBC, and IDA does not get posted, which under open meetings law it is required to be up. And that having that record, because I know we don't have a lot of people maybe watching right now, but
Right.
Over time, a lot of people come back and they review and they want to refresh their memories, and those videos are very important. What are the processes you're going to put in place, and what tools are you missing that maybe council can help bring to the table to make that happen?
So the answer is I don't know, and that's because it's still new to me, and I know that these have been issues in the past, but I don't want to assume to know the best solution based on just my personal opinion, having done one of these meetings myself. I think the thing to do is to talk to Danae, who's really the secretary for those boards, and say, what do you need? Because she's been doing them all along, and she says to me, I just have too much other things. That's a different answer than, oh, I don't have the right software. I mean, she's got software, it's not a big issue, but like, for whatever reason it is, I just don't know the problem. So once I figure that out, it could just be a question of having a calendar. Maybe she's the kind of person that likes to have calendars and maybe she doesn't know. I don't know, but it's been raised recently, obviously. It was on an email message recently, and I take that stuff seriously. We don't want to create any issues with transparency, that's for sure. It's just a question of figuring out where the bottleneck is and then dealing with the solution as best as the person who's got to handle it can handle it.
Yeah, and then I guess my final question is, we are short staffed and we need to compensate more, whatever that compensation package looks like. Like, what is your goal for the department in the next year to get positions filled, and where do you want to start first?
So I have had more thought on this because Steve and I used to talk about this a lot. I would like to invest heavily in project management because that's really what we're missing. The ability to stay with a project. The ability to focus on getting projects completed and to stay with a project instead of jumping in and out of projects. That's what makes things really difficult, take more time. If you've got 15 projects you're working on, chances are you're going to be sort of half into every one of them because you're just not going to be able to maintain all that information. It's very difficult. If you have it's kind of like being a waiter, actually, like in a restaurant. If you have 4 tables, you can do that all day. If you've got 15 tables, people are going to be missing some things. So the ability to then split up the same number of projects among 3 different project managers would just be, and they don't need to be planners, they just need to be project managers. And they can learn, they can come from out of college, and there's a lot of pressure. I haven't talked to Andrew about it. But if he was up to it, he would be fantastic because he'd be teaching them how he does it, which is very sort of old school and hard nosed. At the same time, he's extremely attentive. And I think that anybody who wants to do project management as a career would be so lucky to learn from him. I mean, he's just an incredible project manager.
Thank you for your much.
No, of course.
Thank you, Councilmember Mann. Councilmember Conley Wilson.
Just kind of going off the project management, kind of side of things. I don't have like a PMP or anything like that, but I've done a little bit of like project management in the past and training. I'm curious if you would, like, is there like any kind of like external training that you might want to have those project managers do? And if so, where would that be coming from?
I mean, that's a really good question. So my background is not like classically trained project management, right? I'm not a PMP, I don't know any of that kind of stuff either, but you pick those things up as a small business owner because you kind of have to, not because it's your strength. I think there are certain, it's almost like now with engineers, they almost don't want you to come out of grad school being an engineer because there's a lot of stuff almost on pack where they can kind of teach you how they do things that particularly for that company. And I think that this is kind of similar because ultimately, if we have a system in place that we need people to follow, I would rather have that established system that works and then kind of have somebody sort of move into that and learn it as they go. I'm always down for somebody coming in that knows a better system, just understanding that we have somebody here that's been here for a long time that does things a certain way. And we would probably like to all be on the same page doing things the same way. And so that would be a conversation, but I'm not looking for anything specifically. I'm also not ready to put anything out there because I have to do more research to see like what are, talk to other people, talk to other planning boards or other planning commissioners, talk to other cities, find out what really works for them. Because my guess here is that a lot of times they're just hiring planners and not hiring project managers specifically. And I think that's something that could change and it could be actually a lot better currently.
Good question. Councilmember Soriano.
Hi. So, so I take it that you took a leave of absence from the Director of Economic Development position?
Yeah.
Are you thinking about maybe hiring someone temporary to fill that position?
I would love to, but I think we're gonna have a lot of trouble finding somebody to come in for 6 months. And then it would take them, I mean, it took me a year and a half to really know what I was doing, like to be really comfortable in that position. So it would be tough for somebody.
Okay. Also, do you have AICD credentials?
I never went for AFCP. I didn't really see myself as a planner and I never saw my career being in planning. So I mean, it's the weirdest thing to be here talking about being commissioner of planning because I swore to everybody in grad school that wasn't my thing. Like I was going to go to development, but I wanted to
And here you are.
I wanted to approach planning from or development from a planner's perspective because I think that leads to better projects. And that's really what I tried to do. So and yet Lyme disease and here I am. And so
Yeah.
and it's worked out. I mean, to be honest, I never thought that I would enjoy it as much as I do. I really do. But I think I'm much stronger on the economic development side of things. So what I am going for is the accreditation for finance, development finance professionals. I don't know what the acronym is, but I started that course a while ago. I've got to finish it up in order to get my it to be certified, but I will have that credential probably by the end of next year.
So do you plan on, I mean, is this like one of your goals though, for AICD?
No, not for ASCP.
No.
I mean, maybe I would probably have to revisit that now that I'm like it's on my title and I'm doing planning, but at the same time, I don't know if it's necessarily going to provide more value than I think doing things on like hands-on job training really does, because typically, I don't want to say this the wrong way, but anybody can take a course and pass a couple of tests. Like I can pass a test on, if I'm given enough information, I can do a lot of things like that, but I don't know if it's necessarily worth the amount of effort that it would take and money and time to be able to have just full letters at the end of my title. I like it, but I just don't know.
I mean, from what I heard about it, there's a lot more than just a couple letters, added onto someone's title. It actually provides a lot of resourceful information that you actually need. Updates on new laws and regulations in terms of planning. I mean, I think you should really look into that.
Yeah.
But I see that it's not a requirement. What is a requirement, and that's my next, is you have a driver's license, right?
Yeah, it's actually a cheat. I don't have any others. No, I do, and Max will make fun of me because I ripped it in half by accident sitting on it too many times. So won't get into what he says. In any case, it's crap, so I gotta get, yes, I have a driver's license.
And you do have 5 years of supervisory experience, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. You live in Troy?
I do.
Okay, good. All right.
No, those are good things.
Yeah.
Councilmember Soriento, each of us bring something to the table. Thank you.
No problem.
All right, continue.
Well, the one thing that I do like is that you're acknowledging, your staff. You're recognizing them, you're recognizing certain, areas that, you know, they're potentially, and not fault of their own at all, but that they're potentially struggling with, based on, and it's not on them, it's based on the workload, so I really do like that. You know, I mean, it's acknowledging the employee and, you know, them doing their best and, just seeing like where, you know, maybe they need a little assistance on something just because, you know, it's really not a one-person job. I mean, that brings value. And, that's really good leadership skills that I'm seeing.
I appreciate that. Hopefully that's not the only thing like that, but I do appreciate that.
One thing that was, you know, really impressive and, I mean, I do see your credentials and they are pretty good.
Yeah, so just on that point, because I don't go into any position thinking that I'm perfect or that anybody I'm working with is perfect. It's always a question of finding out what they do well. You know, Dorothy back there is a teacher and going up through school, you learn that if you're not good at something, you have to work at it. And I kind of,
Jillian, and she's also mama. You
yeah.
have to turn around.
Oh. Yeah, I see that all the time. You know, she's a really good mom. But one of the things we talk about sometimes, teaching a kid that they have to continually work at something that they're not good at, just sort of builds frustration sometimes. And if you're putting somebody in a position where they're not necessarily doing the things that they do well, they're kind of forced to like figure out some of the other stuff. It's much better to say, what are you really great at? And then, because once somebody's doing something at a really high level because they're really good at it and they're a good fit for it, typically they're going to build up a lot of confidence, and then they're going to feel better about their job, and they're going to start producing more, and then they're going to start to expand a little bit into some other things and try something new. And if they're not great at it, fine. Like, you don't have to do that as much as possible. When you have a skeleton crew, unfortunately, myself included, we all have to kind of, you know, buck up a little bit and do things that we're not great at. And I'm the first to admit that there are things that I'm not great at. So, you know, it's just part of the course.
Now, I know that you mentioned with Eric that you recognize that it's potentially burnout. Do you have any plans to maybe like ease off some of the crazy workload that he's dealing with?
I'm going to lock his door and I'm not gonna let him into the office for like 2 weeks.
Well, then,
Yeah, we've talked about it. We've already had conversations. He came to me, I'm not saying this, I think, because it's something that anybody doesn't know. He's 100 miles an hour or zero. Like it's one or the other. And that's something that I definitely struggle with my career at different times too, especially when you try to work for yourself. I don't know, so I can probably do this thing, but at some point you kind of have to learn that some things just deserve 60%. And that's good enough because no one's expecting 100%. And it's getting comfortable in where you are and how you fit into the point that you recognize it's okay if it's not perfect. And I think that's going to help him in the long run, but he just needs a vacation right now. And I think he's going to take one in September. So we started talking about that right away.
I'm glad that you do acknowledge that. I personally feel that it is really important that, you know, an employee does take a break from here, you know, here and there. They end up being better employees when they actually do take a break once in a while. So then they get, you know, refreshed, recharged, come back
He doesn't
here.
have kids. He doesn't. His vacation could be like wherever he wants. He can do anything he wants.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, good for him.
I'm really glad that you do acknowledge that. I don't really have anything else. I mean, I, you know, it was brought to my attention about the open meetings law.
Yep.
You know, not putting the agenda out on time. That is a bit concerning to me. Just because we do need to know what's going on, the public needs to know what's going on. And it is, part of the open meetings law that it does have to be posted, I believe, 24 hours in advance. I really do ask that you really, really just discipline yourself and making sure that happens.
Yeah, I think that's it'll take shape as we go and it'll get better and better, but we'll definitely comply with the law. The idea is to get into a schedule so we know on this day when things go out and I'll work with whoever's gonna be helping me on that, make sure it works out.
And that's it for me.
Awesome. We'll circle back. Councilmember Figueroa, any comments, questions?
Well, I commend you for stepping up for such
Yeah.
big shoes, to follow, especially in this position. I've seen you perform, you're always scared, you're always stopping things. Yeah, that's the progress.
Thanks, man, I appreciate that.
And, just what you just said about self-care, that's very important. I like the way that you answer that question, it's not going straight to work and say, hey, all right, let's do this, I'm self-care, very important. And then you guys could be visual on how his work on all together.
There's it's a legacy from, my dad's probably watching this, but it's a legacy from his era. You learn that like, there's some pride in working too much, like, and we kind of teach everybody that there's something we should be proud of, like, that we don't have a life outside of work. And in reality, I think what this new generation is really showing us is that's wrong, like, they're right, it's not the way to live, like, you shouldn't be tied to your desk to the point that you don't need a family. And the fact that we give people kudos for more hours they put in, at some point it's like, why? Like, what is that? And I think that it's really important and it's starting to work. This is what we talked about before. Like, this is the point that you raised. The more that people talk about these things openly, they're willing to be vulnerable about it and say, like, you know what, I'm not feeling great. Like, this is not healthy. Like, I miss this, I miss seeing my family, I miss this, I miss that. That's what's going to stop it. And so I think everybody kind of has a responsibility to own up to the fact that, small business owners too, like, this isn't working. Let's talk about it. We can't deal with it if everyone's gonna kind of like silently suffer in the shadows. Yeah, like we gotta get that stuff out because who cares? Like everybody's this, we all deal with these issues. So we just need to be open about it. So
Perfect. And some really good questions, some good feedback. And, Dylan, you are going to have your hands full. You have a small office. You're really going to have to work as a team. And like you said, sometimes it's the boss picking up the phone. Sometimes it's, obviously having maybe to help out with project management. So it is kind of a jack of all trades and it is more with less right now in pretty much all the departments, the city and other municipalities are feeling the pinch. I just like, at our vacancy list, we're looking at like 40 vacancies and that's without, the 13, 14 firefighters. So it is tough times right now. I must tell you, I wish you didn't mention the wayfinding because I've been all over that project since we received the grant. And I'm like, you stuck a sword in my heart. I'm like, I want to see the project.
I want to put the Band-Aid off. That's sort of I kind of knew that. I was like, throw that.
Bring up that project. Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Anyway, Dylan, I certainly, I wish you all the luck and, you will have your hands full. You do have big shoes to fill because the big shoe guy who was in the room with us started a lot of big projects and, now they're moving forward, but certainly some need more attention than others. So I agree with you with project management that it needs to be a priority, not just in planning, but some other departments. So I do applaud you for stepping up to the plate. It is an exempt position and it probably, put a lot of thought into your family and things like that. So thank you for joining us. If all are okay, we'll reset or we'll actually adjourn from the confirmation hearing. I would ask Dylan to stay there in case we think of anything else. And we'll start the finance really quick, so I'll ask for a motion to adjourn. So move. Motion, Councilmember Steele, is there a second? Second, Councilmember Conley Wilson, and Soriento, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, now we are going to all rise to, say the pledge of allegiance. I'll open up the finance meeting and I'll ask Councilmember Steele to lead us in the pledge. I believe to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we'll take a quick roll call. Councilmember Gully is absent. Councilmember Figueroa.
Here.
Councilmember Steele. Councilmember Miss. Here. Councilmember Conley Wilson. Present. Councilmember Soriento. Council President Mantello is here. We have 6 present, 1 absent. We'll go into the finance meeting, presentation of the agenda. If these 2 resolutions move forward, they will move to the regular meeting tonight. I'll open it up to the public if anyone would like to say, hey, Steve Strikeman, everyone say goodbye. Congratulations on your new role. Bye-bye. Okay, he is leaving. He's not staying. Okay, public forum. Would anyone in the audience like to speak on any item on the finance agenda? Okay, we'll close it. Resolution 79. You might want to hang out, Dylan. You might want to hang out for like 2 minutes. All right. Resolution confirming the appointment of Dylan Medlock Turek as Commissioner of Planning and Community Development, Council President Mantello, at the request of the administration. Is there a motion? Motion, Councilmember Men, is there a second? Second, Councilmember Steele, discussion. Okay, I'll do a quick slow roll, just to add excitement to Dylan. Councilmember Gully is absent. Councilmember Figueroa. Councilmember Steele. Aye. Councilmember Men.
Yes.
Councilmember Conley Wilson. Aye. Councilmember Soriento.
Yes.
Council President Mantello. Aye.
Thank you all.
6 ayes, 0 no's, 1 absent. Dylan Turek, congratulations. Come on up. And we have the oath book here for you.
Oh,
Okay. Oh, regular meeting. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Dylan. Regular meeting, this expense is still there. Okay.
yeah, I'm here.
Fair enough. Congratulations, Dylan.
Thank you.
Resolution 80, resolution authorizing issuance of subpoenas to produce documents before the Tri-State Council in the matter of an investigation of the unsafe conditions of the structures at the Harbor Point Gardens apartment complex that necessitated an emergency evacuation of more than 50 apartments and the response of the landlord 182 Delaware LLC to the emergency. Council President Mantello, is there a motion? Motion, Councilmember Med. Is there a second? Second. Second, Councilmember Soriento, is a little tough there. Discussion, real quick, we did pass, as the council knows, subpoenas for the folks that we have requested to testify. There were 7 folks. 6 from Lexington or affiliated with Harbor Point in some fashion, and 1 from City Hall. Again, we will ask the mayor and the other 3 folks who testify voluntarily under oath to join us on August 17th at 6 p.m. That's a Thursday. Before that, we have a public safety meeting that evening, and then we'll go into the second investigative hearing. To bring folks up to speed with this resolution, I'll do after advice from the Corporation Council. I would just ask folks, it's really hard to hear in here. So if you have combos, if you could just take out in the hallway, it's really hard to hear. Okay. So the prior resolution was for folks to come in to testify, subpoena. We did subpoena 7 folks. This resolution is all about documents. Some council members have requested various documents. on the advice of Corporation Council, we need to pass a resolution to subpoena various documents. I have asked everyone only because Councilmember Men had an initial list of documents to subpoena. So anyone that does want a document, send it to Councilmember Men, just have a clearinghouse. So somebody on the council, I just can't do everything. So Councilmember Men will collect any document that you would like, and then we will include that in the list of subpoena for documents, okay? To bring you up to speed, I did touch base with Carlos Soriento. I am told that the owner of the property, their contractor or engineer is to meet with Carlo on Monday. I believe they have not paid for the permit yet, is that correct? Rick or someone, and by not paying for the permit to date, there still is not a work permit. They have submitted the plans, they've worked with Carlo to amend those plans, however, they did apply for the permit, but they have not paid for the permit, so they still do not have the work permit, and I believe they received two stop work orders for work that was being done outside of the realm that they should be working, correct, Rick?
At least one, I'm not sure. It's going to be.
Okay, I believe two, but I'll take your one. So definitely we know one stop work order, potentially two. So saying that it's, it's still a very, very tough scenario. Some units are being opened back up, but the tenants are stating that there are still violations in those units. I did contact the tenant advocate and told him if there are violations in units being open, that those tenants need to contact code to get an inspection of that unit. Rick, did you want to add anything? Yes,
To be clear,
thank you.
just to be clear, the initial inspections and the work permit are focused on one goal, and that is to make the units fit and safe for human occupancy. That does not mean that every code violation that we notice when we inspect them for fitness and safety will be remedied at that time. So in other words, we're not trying to get the units perfect first. We're trying to get them so that the residents can move back home in units that are meet the minimum standards under the New York State Property Code. Other violations will exist, and we expect that those will be taken care of, longer time frame. Okay, I mean, that's.
Yeah,
So.
thank you, Rick. I mean, I'm
The tenants are complaining that there may be other things that are not satisfactory to them. I mean, the main thing is to get them back in their units first, so that they're not living at home.
I get it. It is still a little concerning to me because, some of the tenants have stated, they're covering mold with, some cheap formica. I mean, some of the things I'm hearing that they still have to live in is just, it's just not right, but I understand where you're coming from, but I don't think it's right. But saying that, on that note, the tenant advocate has informed me that close to 18 folks, and one of the folks that testified the evening of the first hearing has moved out. Another person who has lived there for 15 years has moved out. Many of the folks are finding other apartments to live in. These are folks who actually are being, told we're not going to pay for your motel and you're to go back to Harbor Point. They've just had it and they're leaving. So it's still a very, horrific situation. I call it a crisis. And one more follow-up, because I know we want to move forward, is the tenant advocate, as you know, I contacted Assemblymember McDonald. He's been great. He contacted the AG, contacted Legal Aid. Legal Aid has turned the folks down. The AG's office has stated they are investigating the situation. Fast forward, today I was informed, actually last night, that the tenant advocate is to receive a call today from the AG. So I'm hopeful that that happened. I'll continue keeping folks in the loop. You know, they need help. They need help. And, you know, it's just a terrible situation. So saying that, moving forward, hopefully by this, you know, the investigations, I do believe it is at least remedying a couple minor issues. The woman who stated she didn't get her deposit, the next day, because of our hearing, did get the deposit. Because of what the council's doing, I think it is continuing to put pressure on this property owner, and I think we need to continue doing that. Also, we want to obviously not see this occur in other parts of the city. So property owners need to you know they're going to be held accountable, and it's got to happen. So whatever we can do from the legislative side will do. Yes, Councilmember Conley.
I was informed the other day that Legal Aid is posting a meeting for the Harbor Point tenants next Thursday. I'm just gonna leave off where it is, but it's gonna be at 6. And we can send an email out to the tenants.
That's great news, because as of, I want to say Monday, Eric, the tenant advocate, had stated that they were turned down.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's
I'm not sure
great.
what it's
Yep.
for, but
I'm gonna be at least a meeting. Yep, thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Soriano.
Rick, do you know if any other additional tickets have been issued since June 22nd, or, and, based off those stop work orders? Were additional tickets issued other than the 12, I believe the 12 that were initially issued?
The tickets that were issued, I think were issued after June 22nd by Jesse. And whether
Yeah,
additional tickets have been issued, I'm not sure. I
okay,
don't know the answer to that yet. I don't think so.
right,
We've
okay,
been. Carl is there almost every day. Jesse's been there, inspecting units as they come online. We have stopped work from they have their own crew. Hiding under Tyvek doing things. I don't know exactly whether or not they've been written up for those things yet, but it's gotten contentious up there a few times. And
Yeah.
we're trying to get them to proceed in good order. I've just been informed that they are overnighting the payment for the permit. That would be good if it arrives tomorrow.
Yep.
And once they have a permit, we hope hope that building permits, Carlo will just be dealing with their contractor. We told them that that's who should be doing the work for you.
Yeah, that's a good point. Carlo did state there are only to be 2 folks doing work, and that is the contractor and the electrical company.
The electrical already has.
Yes,
They're permitted by the city of Troy, so they don't actually come into the building permit,
yep.
but they're authorized.
And the problem is that when our folks aren't there, there are some workers who are staying there in one or a couple of the units, which I was up there. And when people aren't there from City Hall, they hurry up and they try to do some work and they squeeze it in, and the tenant advocate will call, and then Jesse or Carlo or Kevin will pop up, and then they'll scatter. And then as soon as they leave, they go back and pound the wall. So it's contentious. It's just a horrible situation, but saying that, God bless. Thank you, Rick. Good, all in favor? Aye. Opposed, resolution 80 carried 6-0. I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion, Councilmember Steele, is there a second? Second, Councilmember Soriano, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, we are adjourned. We're going to go into the regular, and Seamus, if you don't mind letting Mac and folks know, thank you. And Seamus, we can move the table.
That's the word.
Perfect, thank you. Do you need a hand?
No.
Okay,
Got it right.
we'll give Seamus, just a minute and a half to clean up. I can help. So, look at you. Thank you. Oh, and Rick, the court date, August 9th. It was postponed 2 weeks, right? August 9th.
August 9th.
Thank you. Or it was, yeah, for the violation, city court. Okay, we're going to open the regular meeting. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you all who have stayed. If we could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilmember Conley. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call.
Councilmember Dolly is absent. Councilmember Figueroa.
Here.
Councilmember Steele.
Present.
Councilmember Men.
Here.
Councilmember Conley Wilson.
Present.
Councilmember Sorrento.
Here.
Council President Montalvo.
Still here.
Six are present.
All right. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the September regular meeting. Is there a second? Second, Councilmember Soriento, discussion. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Presentation of the agenda. We have added 2 new items, which just passed finance. Good news. Let's do it. First, Mac and votes. McIntyre. Getting us. I really. I know, but I love them, aren't they?
Yeah, me too.
Like, the other ones.
The one right there, let's get that area.
Those are really good deals.
And we stuck here for a while, I better bring guns show, you know? It's flatland.
All right. Thank you all so much for joining us. And this is our favorite part of the council meeting because we get to recognize just incredible people who are doing incredible things, never want a pat on the back. And they're just out there day in and day out for our kids. And you know, Troy Central Little League, I've gotten to know it really, really well, but I always say I was born in North Central and my brothers used to play Troy Central Little League. And I love softball, I love baseball. At that time, I didn't know how to play softball. And so I was playing baseball with the boys and they wouldn't let me play baseball at Troy Central Little League. So I had to join Lansing Bergman softball. But nowadays, we have women and I still believe we are going to see our first woman Major League Baseball player. And I believe that that woman is going to come out of Troy Central Little League. So let's invite the Troy Central Little League folks up. They're just amazing people. Max Henderson, Coach Bob, Gary, if you could join us too, please, please. Gary Krill, who's a friend, all the kids, come on up. This is all about you. This is all about you. Don't be shy. We have thousands of people right now watching us on YouTube. What do you think? Okay, maybe dozen, maybe dozen. Come on over here too, guys. Here. All right, look at this. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give it up for Troy Central Little League. So, before I talk about how great you are, I must tell you, this guy to my right, who just had a birthday, by the way, 49, right? Yeah. But I want Mac and Steve, come on up, please, because, this is your district and Sue, we fancy you, so move on up. Sue blends, I mean, she's always color coordinated, she's always color coordinated. But you know what, folks? This is what it's all about. This team had so much heart, and if you weren't following them on Facebook, you missed something amazing. And I'm gonna let Mac walk you through this season and how incredible these kids are. Mac Henderson.
Wow. What a season, what a season, what a season. This team here was the most humble team we had in years. I'm talking about some years. This team here went through all the adversities that was in the North Central area. They took the challenge and they fought through it. For having a record like they had, only one loss in the regular season. And they had one tie during the regular season. But to win 18 games, one tie, one loss, it's an accomplishment that we are very proud of. And this team brought back respect, pride, and they brought back glory into the North Central area. When you got the neighbors coming out of your house and rooting this team on. Years ago, the neighbors wouldn't come out of the house because of the fact of the situation that was going on in the community. These children, players, and their families, they stood the test to let the people know that in the North Central area, there is something good.
Yeah.
There is something good. We can get them to win the game, but you know what they did? They brought love and respect.
That's right.
To our community, because none of these kids was in trouble. You can look across. None of these kids here was in trouble. None of them. You know, some of them may get the coaches and some of their parents a headache, but they was never in trouble. If someone had a problem at school too would call. And they didn't like my answer because my answer is, I'm coming to class with you. So when I tell them I was coming to class with them, that changed his whole attitude. So I don't want to coach the class with me. You're not gonna embarrass me, coach. But like I said, this is the most humble team. They didn't brag. They didn't jump up and down, we won this and that. What they did, they had that stiff face and said, let's go to the next game. And that's what I loved about these kids, because they stayed so focused, and the community loved them. Parents love them, grandparents come from all over the place to watch these kids play. Gentlemen, and the one lady that we had on the team, she's not here tonight. I am very proud to say I coached them.
And when Mac talks about humble, Mac is one of the most humblest people I've ever met. Mac, literally, I saw him leave Central Little League because one of these kids didn't have a ride. Mac said, this game is not starting, literally hopped in his car, went and picked the kid up, brought him to the game. What he and Jocelyn do on a day in, day out basis, and Coach Bob, and with Gary's help and moral support, was truly amazing with this league. And when we talk about Troy Strong, this is Troy Strong. When we talk about one Troy, this is one Troy, and someday down the road, you guys are gonna look back on tonight, and you're gonna be like, wow, you know, we learned more than just playing baseball. We learned what?
Team sportsmanship.
Very good. What else? How to blow bubbles?
Respect.
That's where it is. Nice. Introduce yourself.
Cameron. Preston. Armando. Emiliano.
Ryan. Coach Pat.
Those,
Over here. Kobe. Isaiah. Ethan.
Ethan.
Awesome. Now, what position?
I prefer myself as a handyman.
I like that. I like that. Very important, very important. Let's give it up for an incredible team. Incredible.
Well, one thing we have enjoyed, it's not just one little league, we got two little leagues. Troy used to have what, five
Oh, yeah.
to six little leagues, we got two little leagues. And this season, both of those little leagues was in the final four. So Troy was very well represented. Not with just Troy Central Little League, but Lansingburg was in the final four as well. And so we have to recognize that organization as well, because if you don't have a team to play, where are you? You're alone. And nobody wants to be alone. So we give Lansingburg respect, we give every team that was in the tournament respect. But I know one thing, we got unfinished business, unfinished business next season.
Absolutely. Real quick, Steve Figueroa would like to say a couple words.
I just want to commend, Brother Mac and his entire staff, because besides the Little League, I mean, his work never stops. I mean, you go from preparing haunted houses for the kids, giving out meals, like him and his staff goes above and beyond. And, I know this, especially with, everything that's going on in North Central, these kids overcoming that adversity and Brother Mac just being consistent, committed to these kids. And I know it's not an easy task. I had the privilege of time. I know you remember when I drove the bus, I had the privilege to drove to Catskill, and, he wasn't on the bus, but I was with all the kids. And, it takes a lot of work, it takes a lot of patience and commitment. And I truly respect you for all the years that you have put in, like I said, day in, day out, it goes beyond baseball.
Yeah.
I know Brother Mac is known as, the head of Troy Central Little League, but he does more than that. He's giving food. Bob is constantly, his right hand, wherever he goes, and they work day in and day out to making sure that not only the game of baseball, the kids have a positive place to be at, but also serving the community on a larger capacity beyond baseball. And we appreciate all of what you do. So you, the entire staff, thank you very much.
And Councilmember Figueroa said it best, the adversity that these kids had to endure this summer was beyond one that I've seen in a long time. And, there was the shooting, they had to stop the ball game. And what do you think? The next day, I came down to Troy Central Little League, and who was there? Feeding the kids. The next day after the shooting. And Mac, Jocelyn, Bob, Coach Bob, all the parents, they were down there that afternoon. They were just there, just to be there for the kids in case the kids wanted to stop by, not just for a meal, but even to talk. So what Mac does in our community, you're going to hear in a couple seconds. I can't say enough. And Coach Bob, did you want to add anything? Okay. Gary, please.
All I can say is, I've known Mac for a long, long time. He does it for the kids.
Yeah.
And that's what we do. We do it for the kids.
All right, kids, you ready? Here it is. It's a big
Thank you.
deal. Someday you're gonna look back at this and say, wow. Whereas the Troy City Council wants to recognize and commend the Troy Central Little League for all they do for our community. And whereas the Troy Central Little League was founded in 1955, before you were born. And whereas it has been located at its present location in North Central for over 60 years. And whereas the league's founders include businesses and folks like McLaughlin Funeral Home, Sage Brothers, and Ray Martell. And whereas Ray Martell was the league's first president, and whereas the league's current president is Mac Henderson, and whereas Mac is very involved with the league and the North Central neighborhood serves. And whereas Troy Central Little League is not just about sports, but providing a safe place for the community to gather, especially our youth. And whereas the league hosts many community events throughout the year, like cookouts, I love your cookouts, a lunch program, haunted houses, trunk or treats, Thanksgiving turkey giveouts, food drives, toys during Christmas, and so much more. And whereas the baseball team just competed in the District 14 Class C championship game, and whereas the Troy Central Little League has competed in many tournaments over the years, and whereas the league's athletes continue to make our city proud, and whereas the council thanks all the dedicated volunteers, board members, and families, but most importantly, our kids, and continue to do this great work for the youth and overall community. Like Mac Henderson said, we really do have something special here in Troy, and it's our youth and our youth groups. Bless them all, and let's continue to honor their achievements. Congratulations, the Troy Central Little League. Right, I'm gonna give these all to Mac, he can hand them out later. We're gonna take a quick pick, but before we leave, real quick, one word that describes your season this year, one word.
Amazing. Good.
Cool, I like that.
Right. Fantastic. Good. Fantastic.
Amazing.
Leadership. Let's give it up to the Troy Central. You guys are amazing, and you teach us to be better people. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
Oh, your president.
Yes, you are. Well, he's handing them out. What do you want to be when you grow up?
Hang it on your wall.
What?
You're in there.
Fighting.
How about you? What do you want to be? I like it. What do you want to be?
I don't know yet.
That's good. All right. Okay.
Be in the MLB. LB.
Look at this. I love it. Okay. Soccer player. We got a soccer player here. Let's get a quick pick. All right. Come on in here. Everybody get tight. Come on, man. Right here. Let's squeeze in. All right. What's the word? What do we want to say? All right. You ready on three?
Ready, 1, 2,
2,
3. Awesome. Good job.
Awesome. Let's give it up to the Troy Central Little League. Bob, they're amazing people. Thank you so much. Thank you. That's what it's all about. Thanks, guys.
August 2nd.
The greatest thing, let's give it up to the families and the parents who support all of you. I know the sacrifice, thank you, thank you.
I mean, you look at something.
Right? Very good. How many people watch it? 200? About 1,000. Next step. 1,200. 1,200. Oh, the empanadas? Yummy. You guys, the chicken, oh, okay, sorry. Vacancy list,
Yeah, really. Motion to adjourn.
now, we have a huge vacancy list and, stating that, public forum. I will open it up to anyone in the audience that would like to address any item on the agenda. Please feel free to come up. Come on up, Greg. Thank you. Shane, I'll get that out there. Thank you, Shane. How are you? Good, good, thank you. You can pull it right up, yeah. And Craig, just for the record, you don't have to state your address, but proximity, where you live.
My name is Greg Campbell-Cowan. I live at 342.
Sorry, Greg, what?
I live at 342.
Your last name.
Oh, Greg Campbell. I wanted to ask, for ordinance 51, amending the general fund. I don't know how to do it, but it's 3 million for 1 million square. I've been trying to follow the project for like cobbling together news stories for business journal entries, like some proposals, right? Obviously, project costs have really risen in the last couple of years, and then separately over the last however many years, the project itself has changed pretty substantially. I don't think it's reasonable to expect like an understaffed department to keep the public price for everything. But I was hoping that like this could serve as like just sort of a level setting exercise of how much does it currently, are we expecting it to cost? Like how much of that is the price from the public? How much of that is the price from the private side, and what the gap currently is? And then the second thing is just at like a very high level, maybe like an explanation of the direct benefit to the public, like affordable housing units set aside. It's just sort of hard to track this. My final question, if you do know the answer, and I don't expect you to answer now, but if it's expected to get a pilot agreement, and what roughly the impact of the taxes.
And we appreciate that, Greg. We have asked the chair of the planning committee to bring Samit, who is the contact for the development group, to come in. We hopefully will have that planning meeting in the next couple of weeks because the project has changed. They did receive 19 mil from the state. This 3 mil was committed way back when the state was considering the 19 mil to try to make that public-private partnership stronger. But as you state, and like us, we kind of are cloudy in terms of, what's the ultimate goal, the number, what has changed dramatically, what hasn't changed. And I know Dylan's here, and maybe Dylan, real quick, you could just, I don't expect you to have all the answers right now, but Greg, for the public and for us, maybe bring us up to speed. Just on a real quick short note, but we will be bringing Samit in because there are many questions because it has changed a couple of times.
Council President.
Yeah, Councilmember Min.
Greg, we are looking to have a planning committee meeting, preceding the finance meeting in September. There will be a number of things on the agenda, but the 1 Monument Square update, with a presentation, ideally from Hoboken Development and Dylan. But please email me. You've sent some questions, but if you have very specific ones that we can then forward on, so we can maybe get that information out.
And Dylan, yeah, please, for the public and the council, what do you know to date in kind of a holistic, big picture?
So I mean, right now, Samit's really the person to be speaking to in a positive way. I mean, we're doing a lot of work at the moment. And we're gonna try to set up a meeting for the next city council. So we'll go over it, we'll go over everything, but also you gotta keep in mind, there's still some questions for the 19 million. We're trying to figure out a lot of stuff right now before debating to something and going public with that, obviously.
Okay, I appreciate that. And the 19 mil, when the state does appropriate that, you sometimes, like a lot of times, maybe it's from an agency, but this sounds like it was more of an appropriation outside of an agency.
Right. With details, yeah.
I get it. Thank you, Dylan. So, stay tuned. But thank you, Greg. And you should know, at the finance meeting 2 weeks ago, we all said many similar things, and that we need to get something in here now that things seem to be moving forward slowly, but moving forward. So thank you. Thank you, Greg. Would anyone else like to address the council on any item on the agenda? Hi, Jen.
John King, 161 Washington, at first, Council President, Councilmember Conley Wilson, Soriento, and Men, thank you all very much for asking some questions about the open meetings law as they pertain to planning. I was at a meeting regarding inclusive development last night, and people had asked, about a just city, and people had talked about transparency. The panelists, the audience, there were people there from the YWCA project. Everyone has been consistently disappointed in the way that Troy has approached its responsibility under open meetings law. Specific to Mr. Campbell Cohen is saying, I've been trying to follow the IDA to even see, where different projects were. I noticed, and the chair of the IDA was there, and he's like, yes, we need more transparency. And he said, we need more transparency. I said, you're the chair of the IDA. He said, yes. And I said, you had a meeting last week and your agenda was blank. There was nothing on it. And I don't know if there was any discussion about.
John, hold that thought. I normally like to interact because it's your
Please,
time.
go ahead, yeah.
But I do have a question on that. So the day of the agenda, there was no agenda? Is that what you're
It said
stating?
new business, old business, meeting of minutes adjournment. I'm
And,
happy to send you a screenshot.
okay, no
of
items.
what was published, and,
Okay,
I do understand, and again, I don't really have, Mr. Turek, I'm sure is coming into a lot, and I did say in my email, I understand that he's coming into a new position. On February 24th, I talked to the LDC about it. I had emailed them about it on March 24th. I spoke to them. I know that other members of that committee have also spoken to them. It is really important.
absolutely.
And moreover, these meetings, because they use video conferencing, have to be posted within 5 days to a website. Those have to be kept on file for 5 years. So minimally, as you guys are going through a confirmation tonight, I would like to get some acknowledgement that these meetings that have been taking place with video conferencing were recorded, they are going to be posted, and that those recordings are going to be made available. I did ask Mr. Turek to respond to that by end of day today. I understand that he's busy. I didn't get a response. Thank you for bringing it up. This is a very important thing, not for me.
Say yes right now, correct?
What's that? I'm sorry.
I'm sure you'd be happy to say yes.
Yeah, of course.
And those meetings are recorded.
And so
Yes.
Gonna be posted year to date.
that's the problems. I don't know what the problem is yet. So I've got to figure that out. And
But the recorded meetings do exist.
yeah, they're on Zoom, so they should.
Okay,
Thank you, John.
thank you.
No,
Appreciate
thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. God bless you. Allergies? Yeah. Thank you, John. Would anyone else like to speak on any item on the agenda? Okay, we're going to close the public forum. Ordinance 51.
Ordinance 51, ordinance amending the general fund and capital projects fund. Budgets to appropriate funding from the American Rescue Plan Act. Council President Mandela, the request of the administration.
Is there a motion? So move. Motion, Councilmember Steele, is there a second? Second. Thank you. I like to see people, especially Andy, our comptroller.
Andy actually said he wanted
What's
it
going
clear. you, so I wanted to make sure.
On the discussion, so we have a motion, Councilmember Seal, is there a second? Councilmember Mann, second, I apologize, because, Seamus is moving that, Andy, did send us the breakdown of the parks, or is sending us a breakdown on the parks monies, and has it, thank you, thank you, thank you. What I asked Andy, we've been getting breakdowns, however, they've been, coupled, instead of complete breakdowns of each project. What I'd like to know is how much, like 2.5 years ago when the design happened, how much did the design cost for each of the park projects? What's been spent to date? What's left for implementation? What has changed from, way back when to today? So I think that this will at least open the door to many questions that we have and the public, but also at the same time, will lead to many more questions. So I do foresee many more questions after we review this. And Andy, can you just walk us through how you broke it down for us?
Yes,
And I don't have my list.
so it's broken down by park name. And then construction administration, design, land survey,
This is good.
they're broken down by park, with the exception of at the bottom, you'll see various parks. Which there's 3 items there: electric service study, which is a recent cost, future cost that's being done for multiple city parks. A parks assessment that was done in 2021 of multiple city parks. And then what has happened is we have contracts with engineering firms, as everybody knows, been aggregated, the purchase orders. They've not been split by park in some instances. So what you see there is the balance of what could not be directly linearly traced back to the individual park. Then you have the total contracted amount, which would be your purchase orders to date. Total purchase orders issued to date by park. Total expenditures is total amount paid by park, and then the total balance remaining. At the bottom is it was requested a future plan, so there's a listing of 5 parks that are being considered for future use. And then behind that is a general ledger report, which will show you the actual expenditures paid by year for 21, 22, and 23 to date. And then the final 2 pages are a summary of the current purchase orders that are outstanding.
Andy, we're not going over this tonight. This is a really, really, really good start. And this is so much of what I was looking for when you and I spoke about this. 2 very quick things. I guess what kind of shocks me is that money was spent for the skate park for the design. I was not aware of that. I knew that there was a charrette or there was a meeting to talk about potential skate park. I was not aware that money actually was put in for design for the skate park. So that kind of surprised me, but we can go over that when we have our GS. Councilmember Gully is watching. He could not participate because you're not allowed to participate by Zoom anymore, but saying that outside of certain circumstances, please make sure, Maria, that there's copies of all the paperwork in Councilmember Gully's folder, okay? And, as many folks know, the parks money, some of the members on the council were here when the council bonded initially for our pocket parks and parks. And then ARPA money was added, then more ARPA money was added because the costs went up. Shovels finally went into the ground 3.5 years later. And, I'm super pleased that it's moving forward. It's long overdue, but Andy, this is exactly what I was looking for. And then we can have a GS to go into particulars if the council's okay with that.
Council
Okay,
President,
council members Orienta.
I was told by Monica at Hope 7, I remember it, about the park off Sheridan Avenue, that it was going to be included, and I didn't see it on here.
we're gonna have to ask, because Andy, he just does the financials. But you're right, and I have questions about a couple things, and, you know, we'll definitely have a GS to go over this.
I have a question about the ARPA funds.
Councilmember, Conley Wilson, thank you.
Andy, do you know like what parks are being funded by the ARPA funds that we're appropriating today?
So it's
112, Beaman, Canal, and Prospect, I was told.
correct, so it will be, we just started using the ARPA money. I don't remember what the first part was that has ARPA money attached to it. What we did was we drained the bond money first. We committed the bond money first, that way it was committed so we could get it out the long-term debt. And then started using the ARPA money, so it just started being, I'll use it again, what's used. They're obligated in the last, I would say, 2 to 3 weeks. Is how we did it, which it was a financial strip. We had already issued the 2 million, so it behooved the city to use that first. As we were paying interest on it and get us the long-term debt. All the city parks are eligible in their ARPA. It's not pick and choose. So it's more of a matter of circumstance and timing as to what part will be ARPA funded as opposed to unfunded. It's being viewed as one pot.
And I did, someone did just text me from the Little Italy neighborhood and is curious why Little Italy, will they be on the list? And I do want to state, we're waiting, Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, and we're waiting to see where the dollar or how much they may need. We have not obviously said aside money for Little Italy. We have committed that if they come up short, we will commit dollars. Or is something else going on that I should be aware of? We should be aware of.
I think based on the budget estimates, we're expecting the federal money from Congressman Tonko and the money from Assemblymember McDonald to
Yeah.
cover the cost. The next step right now, because because we have an acceptance from DASNY for the McDonald funds.
Just for folks, DASNY, Dormitory Authority, State of New York.
Yep. And now we're in the process of, we've gone out to the engineering firms, asking them to provide an estimate for their work. And as part of that, there will be public engagement for what we're putting together, a little bit marketplace. And we will also, they'll put together the cost estimate plus the bid documents that will go out in the end.
Perfect.
I also anticipate we're currently working out with TAP how to work the $500,000 from Congressman Tonko, whether TAP will handle that, or more likely, I think what's going to happen is they're going to funnel some of that money to the city to handle the project overall, because they just can't cash flow it. In which case we come back to the council for example, a memorandum of agreement or understanding as far as how that relationship would work. But we haven't worked out the details. We've been focused right now on the McDonald funds to kickstart the process and to then bring the engineering firm on board.
Perfect. And, you know, I didn't want to get too much in the weeds. I believe we're looking at spring of 2024, correct?
It all depends on the engineering firm. And how quick we can, get them on board and what they currently have in their workload.
Very good. Okay. Thank you, Chris. Andy, we'll take a look at it, and if we need more information, we'll give you a holler. And then I've asked Councilmember Gully to hold the GS to get into the weeds on the projects. Okay, thank you so much, Andy. Regarding ordinance 51, are there any other questions? Yes, Councilmember Conley Wilson.
I'm not sure who would answer this, if this would be Dylan or Chris, but I'm curious for the 1 Monument Square project, if there's any like project scopes, estimates, all that I asked 2 weeks ago at the finance meeting. Did we have any of those materials?
Should I come up? Okay. We're working on project scopes right now. Again, it really comes down to, there are a couple of things that we're kind of weighing in terms of options, and this is really meets sort of what he's dealing with right now. The depending upon how that scope shakes out, we're gonna go back one more time for the pricing and budgeting out of this project. We've gone back a lot of times already, and it's not gonna help if we don't have the final project or something we can at least point to and say, yeah, everybody approves of this. That'd be the last step. The first thing we gotta do is figure out exactly what works, make sure city council and everybody in the public really appreciates the project and thinks it's great. And then we'll go out and do the costing. Then it's a long process, especially to get details. And we really need to make sure that we don't have to keep changing numbers. We've done it so many times at this point.
Thank you, Dylan. Further questions, discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Opposed.
Five ayes, one no, ordinance 51 passes.
Ordinance 52.
Ordinance 52, ordinance transferring funds within the 2023 general fund, water fund, and miscellaneous special revenue fund budgets per President Menzel at the request of the administration.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion, Councilmember Steele. Is there a second? Second, Councilmember Conley Wilson. I thought, I did get, the question on the utilities. We did get that straightened out. Did anyone else have questions? Just for the folks who are watching out there and folks here in the audience, we did go through these, line by line and the prior findings. Further questions? All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
6 ayes, 0 nos, ordinance
Aye.
50,
Oh, yeah.
ordinance 52 passes.
And, to take a step back, I want to thank Andy. Andy was sick in bed. I did not know. He called me back with a cold and he got, these parts, reports done while he was home sick in bed. So thank you, Andy. Thank you. Ordinance 53.
Ordinance 53, ordinance authorizing the creation of a capital project in the capital projects fund, appropriating funding from the assigned unappropriated fund balance of the water fund for the improvements of the capital project and amending the water fund and capital project fund budget for the capital project. Council President Menzel at the request of the administration.
Is there a motion?
All right.
So moved.
Motion, Councilmember Steele. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Councilmember Ben. Chris, just for the public, this is just a huge overall proposal. And I drove through again today. Coincidentally, a tractor trailer was coming in off Route 40. My mom and I were coming out of the plant. And long story short, I had to literally back it up all the way to the entrance of the treatment facility. So just for folks out there, this is, I think, very timely, probably overdue. Any updates with the Masonic Temple, and anything else since our last meeting?
No updates on the Masonic Temple. I was waiting for everything to be finally approved so I can move forward. I do know they are interested in selling. I have been in contact with them and they are looking forward to moving on and giving that back to the city and going elsewhere.
Okay, good. And we're still looking, you think around 300,
That's about where the appraisals are. They're anywhere from 265 to 290, so it's in that area. And then with that funding, at least some extra, so we can put in some garage doors and make it useful for us.
very good. And in terms of the security, the 1.5, how much do you see actually going into infrastructure, hard infrastructure rather than designs, things like that?
I would say 90% of it will be the infrastructure. I believe I sent the plans to everybody here after the meeting last week or last night. So that's what we're looking at doing, widening the roads. There's a lot in just excavation, widening the road, blacktop, kind of curbing, that sort of thing, fencing, a lot of electric, a lot of lights going in. So there's a lot to be done, but 90 to 95% of it will be into construction.
Do you see the gates coming in right at Route 40 or more in toward the treatment plant?
More in towards the treatment plant so the trucks can get off of 40.
Okay,
We don't want to have a
Right.
backup on the 40. They're gonna be able to pull in around that first turn and then we'll have a pull off for them. Where they can sleep for the night, if they can't gain access, or stay off until we have people available to unload them.
Okay, very good. I mean, I found it so coincidental. I was laughing. I'm like, Chris would laugh right now, like literally, I couldn't come out. He was taking the turn and.
It's just not enough room. The trucks are getting bigger and the road didn't budge.
Yeah, so anyway, very funny. Any further questions, discussion?
I just have like a
Council
comment.
member Conley Littleton.
Chris, just something to think about. I know you mentioned like partnering with Spectrum. They might be willing to do like a in-kind donation for like cameras, and things like that. So I'm sure you're thinking of that already, but I just want to put that out there.
Yes, been in contact with their headquarters. They're fully on board and want to be a part of this to help save their equipment, their materials and their site also.
Very good. Okay, further questions, discussion? Chris, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
6 ayes, 0 noes, ordinance 53 passes.
Resolution 66.
Resolution 66, resolution appointing a commissioner of deeds for the city of Troy, Council President Gonzalez.
Is there a motion? So moved. Motion, Councilmember Mann, is there a second? Second, Councilmember Conley Wilson. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
6 ayes, 0 noes, resolution 66 passes.
Resolution 72.
Resolution 72, resolution determining that proposed action is a type LI action for purpose of the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act. Council President Menzel, the request of the administration.
Is there a motion? Motion, Councilmember Soriento. Is there a second? Second, Councilmember Conley Wilson. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
It was type 2, missed that, oh my bad. 6 ayes, 0 noes, resolution 72 passes.
We'll take it off your paycheck. Resolution 73.
Authorizing the issuance of 1.5 billion serial bonds to finance the purchase of a building on Water Plant Road and improvements. Council President Mansell, at the request of the administration.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion, Councilmember Steele. Is there a second? Second, Councilmember Men. Discussion. Chris, you want to add anything else that you haven't? Thank you. Anyone else? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
6 ayes, 0 noes, resolution 73 passes.
Resolution 74.
Resolution 74, resolution authorizing expanding the scope of services under the contract with Benetech Inc. for administration of the city's health insurance program and the additional expenditure therefore. Council President Mansell, the request of the administration.
Is there a motion? So moved. Motion, Councilmember Steele. Is there a second? Second, Councilmember Conley Wilson. Discussion?
Handy.
I'm just kidding.
Okay.
I know, a little punchy there. Just Councilmember Soriento, and I raised the issue, with the concern of, the position, and Bill Wangler, head of CSEA, has signed off and is good with this reso. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
6 ayes, 0 noes, resolution 74. What? Resolution 74 passes.
Resolution 79.
Resolution 79, resolution confirming the appointment of Dylan Medlock Turek as Commissioner of Planning and Community Development. Council President Mansell, at the request of the administration.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion, Councilmember Steele. Is there a second? Second, Councilmember Men. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Dylan Turek, congratulations. You are now a full-fledged, not acting Commissioner of Planning and Economic Development. My okay. Congratulations, and you're welcome to sign the oath.
Bottom right, Dylan, I already signed it.
And John, thank you. We will definitely have Dylan iron that out. Thank you.
And thank you, Dylan.
Yeah, you got it. Absolutely. Thanks.
There he goes.
Very good. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you, everybody.
I took a picture. I'll send it to you, Dylan.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's a new chapter, Dylan. Resolution 80.
Resolution 80, resolution authorizing issuance of subpoenas to produce documents before the Troy City Council in the matter of an investigation of the unsafe conditions of the structures at the Harbor Point Gardens apartment complex that necessitated emergency evacuation of more than 50 apartments and the response of the landlord 182 Delaware LLC to the emergency. Council President Mantello.
Is there a motion?
Motion.
Motion, Councilmember Soriento, is there a second? Second, Councilmember Conley Wilson, discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed?
6 ayes, 0 no's, resolution 80 passes.
Awesome. I will take a motion to adjourn. Motion, Councilmember Seal, is there a second? Second, Councilmember Soriento. Oh, I apologize, second public forum. Thank you. My new, temporary pro tem, Sue, you've been bounced, I'm kidding. Would anyone like to, talk to the council about any issue that might be happening in your neighborhood, on your street, or just, a concern? Please feel free to come up and speak. Okay, I will close the public forum. We do have a motion, Councilmember Steele, is there a second? Second, Councilmember Soriento, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you.